Good morning and welcome to the banquet hall here at Jamaica House on the lawns of the Office of the Prime Minister in Kingston, Jamaica. It's Wednesday, February 23, 2022. I'm Naomi Francis, the Press Secretary here at the Office of the Prime Minister. We're pleased to have this morning with us the Minister without Portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, the Honourable Robert Nesta Morgan, who will give us the Cabinet deliberations and decisions of the last 2 weeks. And now let's join Minister Morgan as we start our post-Cabinet media briefing. Minister.
Thank you, Naomi. I'd like to first say good morning to members of the media and also those who may be watching and listening online. So we start off today with our Cabinet decisions, after which we will take questions. As you may recall, the Cabinet had approved the new Firearms Act 2022, which was tabled in Parliament and which will now go to a joint select committee in short order. There is also the approval of amendments to the Insurance Act, which was done recently by Cabinet, as well as the approval of Jamaica to host the 2022 National Determined Contribution Partnership Spring Steering Committee meeting. This will be hosted from April 4 to April 7 and will facilitate discussions concerning overall strategic directions of National Determined Contribution Partnerships and its 5-year work program. I would like to welcome Minister without Portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth, Minister Mattis Amuda. He has stewardship of the water and housing portfolio. He will be making the water and environment portfolio. He will be making a presentation after I finish. We will also like to reveal Cabinet's decision to repeal and replace the Pensions, Superannuation Funds and Retirement Schemes Act 2004. This will ensure that the relevant amendments are made to also the Income Tax Act and the Financial Commission Act. There's also the approval of the National Housing Trust and Regulations amendments. This was done to ensure that the regulations incorporate policies that were undertaken by the trust from 2006 to present. We also had an increase, approval of an increase in the minimum wage, which was revealed by Minister Samuda yesterday, and also the proposed Information and Communication Technology, ICT, in education policy was also approved. We also had appointments to the boards of JAMPRO, which is chaired by Mr. Don Webby, effective from the 14th of February 2022 to the 13th of February 2024, as well as appointment of members to the Board of Directors for the Hazardous Substance Regulatory Authority, which is chaired by Professor Haishen Kumbakawa. And also we had the approval of the 4th session of the Jamaica-Nigeria Joint Commission in Abuja, Nigeria, which will take place from the 22nd to the 24th of February this year. We also had reports from Cabinet, which include the annual report and audited financial statements of the Transport Authority, as well as the audited financial statements and reports of the Port Authority from 2018-2019 to 2019-2020, and Petrojam from 2020 to 2021, as well as the annual report and audited financial statements of Jamaica Ultimate Tire Company from 2017 to 2018. We also had the approval of contracts for panic alarm system at Garmex Free Zone by the Garmex Group to the value of $81 million, as well as approval of contracts for ground maintenance services at Petrojam for $69 million, as well as closed user group services to Cable and Wireless Jamaica Limited for the Ministry of Finance and Public Service for $34 million, and the approval of a provision of preventative maintenance services of air traffic management systems for US $2 million to Thales Air Systems SAS, and the award of contract for the provision of group health and life and accidental death, dismemberment and disability insurance for the employees of the National Health Fund to the tune of $117 million to Guardian Life Limited. I'll now invite Minister Samuda to make his presentation, after which we will take questions. Minister.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation, Minister Morgan, Madam Press Secretary. Pleasure to join you, and to members of the media. I would like to update the country on 3 matters related to environmental management within the country. First of such matters is the illegal sand mining, which would have been the subject of much national discourse last week. We can report that at this stage an enforcement notice and a cessation order have been served on the individual that would have been mining illegally sand in the Great Bay Area. This space would have been, the space rather, that would have been mined is what we would classify as a sand dune. It is of particular concern to the residents, and I wish to assure all residents of the Great Bay Area and extension the Treasure Beach area that we will be taking steps to ensure that the area is rehabilitated appropriately. We wish to also advise citizens that we will be moving to ensure that the full extent of the law is applied to this case. There is a broader point, however, that we wish to bring across to citizens. We encourage you to bring to our attention matters of environmental concern. NEPA, the police, no enforcement agency will ever have the full footprint that we wish we would have in Jamaica. So we need you to be our eyes and ears. When matters of this nature are brought to our attention, we will take the strongest action possible within the law. And that is a point that we think needs to be made. We know that the issue of sand mining in particular has been of concern to citizens for a long time, and we intend to work diligently to strengthen the laws that are related to this space, as well as to ensure that our enforcement keeps pace. The other point I think the country should be aware, I would have given this report to Cabinet on Monday. Under the instructions of the Prime Minister, we will begin taking steps to look at the legal protection of this area and the sand dunes along the southern corridor. These sand dunes would have been formed some 5,000 years ago, and we believe they warrant the protection under the environmental laws of Jamaica. We will update further on that matter in due course. The other matter that I would like to update the country on, yesterday, the National Environmental and Planning Agency, MEGJC, and indeed the Climate Change Division of MEGJC, would have held its final public consultation on the emissions policy and the new climate change policy. Now, to remind those listening, the IPCC 2018 Special Report on Global Warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius states that human activities are estimated to have caused approximately 1 degree Celsius of global warming above pre-industrial levels, with a likely range of 0.8 to 1.2 degrees Celsius. Global warming is likely to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius between 2030 and 2052 if it continues to increase at the current rate. The impacts of temperature increases above 1.5 degrees Celsius are devastating to the globe as a whole, but to us as a small island developing state are particularly devastating to our land usage, our energy sources, industry, buildings, transports, and cities, and to human health generally. It is important that we recall that we live in a country where 70% of our citizens live within 5 kilometers of the coast. Climate change is indeed real, and it is a clear and present danger to Jamaica. This policy framework, to which we have consulted widely, is very important to help the government to appropriately plan for the changes that have already happened and those that are to come. The argument is often made that countries, middle to low income like Jamaica, are not the major contributors to climate change. However, we are the countries that are most affected. And as a global climate leader, we believe it's important for us to also chart the way forward with appropriate climate action while we also adapt and ensure that our systems, our infrastructure is resilient enough to manage the changes which are to come. Though the final public consultation is indeed closed, as we invited citizens to further submit comments in writing to MEGJC, I would ask that citizens read the policy. It is on the MEGJC website, and we ask that they contribute. Now, an important distinction has to be made, and we were at pains to make it both in our private consultations with manufacturers, with the private sector in general, with NGOs, and with the youth consultations. The emissions policy is a close cousin of the climate change policy. It is important to note that the emissions policy goes much further in looking at general air quality. The WHO considers air pollution to be the greatest environmental risk to health. The organization has stated that air pollution kills an estimated 7 million people worldwide every year. In fact, data shows that 9 out of 10 people breathe air that exceeds WHO guideline limits, containing high levels of pollutants, and low and middle income countries, just like Jamaica, suffering from high exposures. The total numbers of deaths attributed to ambient air pollution in Jamaica in 2016 was estimated to be 695. Now, climate change continues to pose an existential threat. However, air pollution cannot be ignored as a clear and immediate danger. This policy seeks to address that. So we invite further comments. When we have taken all the comments into consideration, we will present the policies to Cabinet, and from there we will update the country by way of the Parliament on the extent of these policies. The final point I would like to make, Minister Morgan, with your leave, is Jamaica will participate on Monday in the UN Environmental Congress. This will be held and managed by UNEP. Members of the media should recall that UNEP has 2 regional and sub-regional bodies actually anchored in Jamaica, and Jamaica considers itself a main player in the region for environmental protection. Jamaica would have participated just under a month ago in Costa Rica in the regional planning session for these meetings in Kenya. We sought to come to a landing on regional positions on issues of protecting biodiversity and plastic pollution. Jamaica's position will be very strong in these meetings to come, as many of our policies are indeed geared and aimed at improving our own legislative framework to deal with the issues of biodiversity loss and indeed plastic pollution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Samuda. I think now would be an appropriate time, Press Secretary, for us to begin taking questions from the media. As usual, please identify yourself and your media house, and we will field your questions.
Thank you so much, Minister Morgan, and of course all members on the Zoom platform. Again, just a reminder, if you wish to ask a question, you must click the link that says panelist, and we'll be able to hear you. We also ask that you turn your microphone and camera on so that we'll be able to have a smooth flow of the question and answer segment. So again, if you have a question, please use the raise hand feature on our Zoom platform. Our first question comes from Shalane Hendricks. If you could identify your media entity and go ahead with your question, please, would appreciate. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, Minister.
Good morning, Shalane.
So the question is, are there any updates on the students we have in Ukraine? Have any of them returned? And if so, how many? And are there any still remaining, and what efforts are being put in place to get those students back home? And the second question is, what's the government's position on Russian forces being deployed in sections of Ukraine?
So we can confirm, based on information from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, that we're aware of 7 students who have left, who were supposed to have left yesterday rather, and 2 are scheduled to leave on Thursday. We can also confirm that we have tried to facilitate as much as possible the interest of the students in the Ukraine, but we have also faced challenges because while our staff and the Foreign Service have been making efforts, the reality is that we have not been able to contact consistently all of them. We've reached out, some have responded, some have not. The public should remember that at the last briefing, we mentioned that the students will be able to transit through Germany without the need for a Schengen visa if they are transiting within a 24-hour period. Other than that, I don't think there is much more to report, but I understand that the Minister may give a further update on the matter. We want to also advise the students, as we have done consistently, that as things evolve, they should consider their position within the Ukraine to ensure that they make the best decision for their safety and well-being. And that's the best advice I think we can give. But we will always continue to work and see how we can find ways of assisting them however we can. As it relates to the position on the Ukraine, I think I will leave that to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, as she has custody of those matters. So it wouldn't be appropriate for me to pronounce on such a matter of such great magnitude that the Ministry and the Minister of Foreign Affairs would have authority to speak on at this time. And I'm sure eventually she will make a comment on it. Could we have the other question, please?
Thank you, Minister. Let's go over to Mr. Gavin Riley. Gavin, once again, could you remind us of the media entity you represent and go ahead with your question?
Good morning. My name is Gavin Riley. I'm from OWA today. The question is to Minister Morgan in relation to the previous post-cabinet press briefing. A question was raised and in relation to the upcoming visits of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, and you directed journalists to the Governor General's office. However, on contacting the Governor General's office in King's House, they have redirected us back to the office of the Prime Minister. Is there any clarification on whether or not the government will be paying for the royal visit?
The government doesn't pay for royal visits, Mr. Riley. There are obviously going to be costs. If a VIP is coming to your country, there will obviously be costs as it relates to per diem for security personnel who will be engaged to ensure the safety of when it happened with President Obama, it happened. Any dignitary that comes to Jamaica, the country will obviously have to foot a cost. We won't be paying, and I want to repeat again, the government is not paying for the visit. What I will also wish to say to you is that there will be an official announcement tomorrow as it relates to the visit, and I suspect that that announcement will give clarity as to what the visit is about and how it will manifest itself. Could we have the next question, Ms. Francis, please?
Thank you, Minister. Is there any other question that is online? Remember, you use the raise hand feature. I want to thank Gavin and Charlene Hendricks, Charlene from the Gleaner, who had asked the first question. I see no further hands raised this morning, Minister.
Thank you very much, Naomi.
May I then assume that we have exhausted questions that the media may have this morning?
Thank you. And thanks to members of the media who participated today, and also thanks to persons who listened and viewed. and I hope you have a wonderful and safe day. Please remember, wear your mask, sanitize, and maintain as much distance as possible.